Why are Americans paying so much for our gas and oil when America is self-sufficient? I mean, here we've got this headline at Bloomberg yesterday that this is what got me going on this whole thing. The headline: New York, New England ration heating oil even before peak winter. And there's a graph from the from the U.S. Energy Information Administration that that lays this out. That right now we are way below. I mean, the normal stock of U.S. petroleum products this time of year is between 140 and 160 million barrels, and right now we're down at about 100 million barrels. I mean, we're way down. And at the same time, the Saudi oil, and so President Biden is releasing oil from the strategic reserve. All right, 14 million barrels of oil from the strategic reserve. And so now the oil minister of Saudi Arabia, Prince Abdul Aziz bin Salman, MBS's brother, I believe, comes out and says, basically threatening us, saying you are making a big mistake if you're releasing oil from your strategic reserves. He says, quote, "It is my profound duty to make it clear to the world that losing emergency stock may become painful in the months to come." In other words, we're going to mess with you. Tom Friedman has a piece about this in today's New York Times, how Putin is basically, calling the tune here. And American oil companies are, in the meantime, continuing to export hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crude oil and refined gasoline every day to Brazil. This was a Trump policy to help Bolsonaro keep gas prices down because he's up for re-election. You can't make this stuff up. Now, how did this happen? In 1975, in 73, we had the Arab oil embargo. 2 years later, in 75, under Jerry Ford, Congress said, okay, enough. We're not going to export any more American oil. That's it. No more. That was 75. 4 years later, Jimmy Carter came along and said this. Just laid it right out for the American people. Let's start that over here because I'm not hearing it, Sean.
The energy crisis is real. It is worldwide. It is a clear and present danger to our nation. These are facts, and we simply must face them. What I have to say to you now about energy is simple and vitally important. Point one, I am tonight setting a clear goal for the energy policy of the United States. Beginning this moment, this nation will never use more foreign oil than we did in 1977. Never.
And he continues.
Moreover, I will soon submit legislation to Congress calling for the creation of this nation's first solar bank, which will help us achieve the crucial goal of 20% of our energy coming from solar power by the year 2000.
We could have avoided this global climate crisis. We could have changed the trajectory of the world's fossil fuel usage in 1979. And this really pissed off the fossil fuel industry, and so they just poured money into Reagan's campaign. He floats into the White House in 1980 on a river of oil money. And what's the first thing he does? He takes down Carter's solar panels from the roof of the White House, and he cancels the solar bank program. I mean, but still, even in the face of that, Jerry Ford's 1975 ban on oil exports still stood. And so right up until 2015, the only country we were legally exporting oil to was Canada, and it was just a little tiny bit. And then, of course, comes Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp, Bob Corker, and Lisa Murkowski putting forward a piece of legislation that would end the ban. And it got rolled into a piece of must-pass legislation, and President Obama signed it in 2015. And boom, oil exports exploded. Right now, the amount of oil that we consume, for the first time since 1950, by the way, literally in 1950, the amount of oil that we consumed was equal to the amount of oil we produced. And then we started consuming more and more, and our production just kind of flattened out. Our production really started to explode around 2005 as oil prices went up. And now we are producing an identical amount of oil to what we consume. But we're exporting a third of it, 30%. And so we have to import that third at world prices from Saudi Arabia and Russia and whatnot. I mean, this is nuts. This is Public Citizen just issued a massive report on this yesterday, literally yesterday. And this is from one of the opening paragraphs of this report, the summary, the abstract. Quote, for crude oil, about 29% of U.S. production in the first 6 months of 2022 was exported. That is more than double the 12% exported in 2017 and quadruple the 7% exported in 2016, the first full year of unrestricted crude oil exports. In the first 6 months of 2022, 3.4 million barrels per day of crude oil were exported from the U.S., nearly 3 times as much as in 2017, when about 1.2 million barrels per day were exported. So we're exporting 3.4 million barrels a day, and President Biden just released 14 million barrels from the strategic reserve. That's 4 days worth of exports. Why are we exporting oil to Brazil to help Bolsonaro with his reelection, forcing us to import oil from Saudi Arabia at whatever price they set, so that we're having to draw on our strategic reserves in order to keep gas prices reasonable? This is insane. We need to reverse Joe Manchin's legislation. Joe Manchin, Lisa Murkowski, Bob Corker, and Heidi Heitkamp are no longer senators. They're both lobbyists now. But this is nuts. And it's not rocket science. We could be independent of these guys. We could set our own damn prices. What do you think? Have I gone off the edge here?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Or did America go off the edge in 2015 when we changed a real rational policy from 75 that had served us well for 40 years?